So, welcome. I'm super happy to have you here all the way from Australia with us. We have Alison Wheeler from Alison Wheeler Coaching, and she's going to guide us through what she's done in the past, her ups and downs, and what she's doing now, and share some tips on how you can get to those goals that you might not even know exist. So, welcome. Let's dive right in.
Thank you so much, Debbie, for having me. We are on opposite sides of the planet and different time zones, but that's the beauty of online, right?
Yeah,
Can all come
exactly.
together and reach different time zones. It's fun.
Yeah. So why don't we start off by telling us what gave you the idea to start into your coaching business? How did you end up, and we're going to work back, then we'll work backwards at it. So how did you end up starting Alison Wheeler Coaching?
Yeah, sure. So well, this is not the first iteration of Alison Wheeler coaching. So this is I think, the second iteration and a gap in between.
Mhm.
So this iteration we'll go with. Well, maybe we'll start with the first one. So the first one, I'm an occupational therapist by profession. So worked a lot in within companies, looking at how like a lot of preventative work around preventing injuries, workplace culture, helping them to have a better outcomes for productivity, better outcomes for the people working for them. Realize that a lot of companies have very terrible procedures and don't necessarily, like, the people employed within them don't necessarily know what to do, how to do it, all of that. So started coaching as a result of that, and so that's sort of where it started, and started to build that. And then I had my daughter. My husband thought it was a fabulous idea to start a network marketing company
Mhm.
because he wanted to be at home. And I didn't quite know how I was going to juggle the whole new mum thing. That was really like, whoa, holy, like that
Yeah,
flipped
holy
everything.
hell.
Yeah, like, holy hell, like
Yeah.
what? And I found that transition pretty tough because I'd been, able, like, I'd built a lot of success, and I'm like, how now do I do this? Right? How now do I what is this? So that was a huge transition. No one really talks about that transition.
Mhm.
So my husband sort of was trying to build this business, throwing everything at it, and I'm like, oh, I'm very impatient. So I jumped on board with him, and I'm like, let's just put some rocket fuel on this thing. We need, if this is what we're doing, then we need it to be producing at a big rate fast. So jumped on board, probably kind of took it over really. Anyway, as you do. And then I built that up to seven figures. I built to be the number one distributor in that company around the world. Fabulous. That was great. Pandemic hit. Things changed, as we all know. And it just really rocketed the whole business and myself.
Mhm.
I'm actually super grateful for it. Okay, I wasn't grateful at the time at all. I was
Yeah.
probably a few expletives coming out of my mouth through that time. Wasn't grateful at the time, but I really am, because it made me look. And I had restarted my athletic journey, or probably more professionally and seriously again. Not that I ever stopped it, but it sort of combined at the same time. So it allowed me to really stop, look, and go, what are you really doing? Is this actually in alignment with what you really want? Or are you just doing it because you can, because you think that's what, you know, everyone else thinks you should be doing, or
Mhm.
because you're still trying to solve this problem for your husband, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, do I want to be aligned with the vision of where that company's going? The answer to all those questions were no. So I was like, oh, now what am I going to do? Because I recall building success in that company, and then I still felt like I was by myself. I still felt like it wasn't in alignment, and I'm like, "What
Mhm.
on earth?" I didn't know what that was. Didn't understand that until I sort of had the time. Well, COVID pandemic gave me the time to sit back and review.
Yeah.
So, and then it kind of all unraveled. So then I was at the crossroads. What do I do? Right? What am I going to do from here? Holy, you become quite the figurehead when in something like that. This is a big bold move if I'm going to leave.
Yep.
So I left and I jumped, and I thought,
Mhm.
well, I'm going to build on the way out. I'm going to just have to like this. I can't do it anyway. I tried to kind of eloquently leave. I tried to kind of build something, and just none of that worked. So I jumped and thought, well, I'm just going to back myself, and I'm going to build my coaching again. That's because it's not like I wasn't doing that whole time for 13 years anyway.
Yep.
And so I did. So I jumped, and this is how we are here today, and started building again from. I mean, it is from scratch, but Debbie,
Yep.
you go into it with a new level of you take the knowledge with you. So it's not, yes, it's from scratch. Yes, it's scary. Yes, far out. Like all of those things, as if you don't get frustrated through the build of
Mhm.
anything. Um, but you come with new skills. So that's kind of where I've got to, like, that's how we
That's
are
how
here.
you got there.
Yeah, that's how we're here today. So,
Do you know, can you pinpoint or put into words what the conflict of values, what values they had versus what values you had? Is that something you can do
yeah,
now?
yeah, well, authenticity,
Yeah. And
100%.
how did how did it show up for them? How did you
Well, for
perceive them
them,
being
I think,
inauthentic?
yeah. So I think there's a balance between, and I think this is something that people struggle with, and certainly this was an internal conflict. There's other values, but authenticity
Mhm.
would be a big one. So there's where you need to paint the and project the lifestyle and paint and project the where someone can be at, right?
Mhm.
But then there's the where people are at. And
Yep.
you know, there's this huge conflict and confusion, in my opinion, and in my experience between, we've got to paint it to be this great, this and that, and da 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 da. Da. Yes, that is true. But there is a balance of that between the authenticity and the truth and the bringing more of one's true self, and because there's so much more depth in that, right? So it was that, I think, when something to me feels inauthentic, there's no depth, there's no person, right? where's
Yeah.
where's the soul in it? And that's a very spiritual concept when we're talking about
Mhm.
business, but
Yeah, yeah.
but it's true for me, right? Because I think, it's not business is very mechanical, but it's also very spiritual, right?
Well,
So
you're
there's
you're you're bang on right there because as I build my business, it's 30% mechanic. That's in my mind, it's 30% mechanics and tactics. It's 70% the soft stuff.
yeah,
The
yes, and
the
I think
quote
a
quote
lot of people,
spiritual, whatever word you want to
whatever
use
you
for
want
it.
to call that,
Yep.
and I think there's a big, people have that all kind of mixed up, right?
Well,
So,
that comes from the guys.
oh, look, 100%, right? That
Yeah.
success has been taught that it's got to be in a certain way, and you can't have like, meh. But that doesn't work. Not for women. I mean,
No.
well, and I don't know that it really works that well for men. Look how many have heart attacks and relationship failures and everything like that. I don't know that that's really the most fabulous model.
Right.
I think that, like, I'm direct. I will go for a goal 100%, but you can be more whole.
Mhm.
It doesn't just need to be, and I think that's where that conflict, there was not enough holisticness for me, or authenticity, and
Yeah.
that became more and more evident, um, as well, and what true support is, and assisting other people.
I
My
think it,
my
it I think it becomes more obvious once you get higher and higher up in some of the network marketing companies as
100%.
well.
I don't think that you can see that until sometimes you're all the way right up in that top
Mhm.
1%. Then when
Yep.
you can really, it's just a different world being in that 1%. And it's also very lonely because other people also don't have a you can speak about it and people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how can you not see that? And so that was a big conflict for me. It's like, well, maybe, and also the information you will obviously also can be told is it's you. It's just you. Now that is true to a degree,
Yep.
but it's also extremely detrimental. If it is me, tell me what bit. Like
Yep.
how do you then fix that, right? Like I can't be that broken. So that would be what I would say.
I think that's the what we're talking about is what I call the gap. It's the, this is where you are, this is where you want to be. And some people can leap that gap based on the backpack of tools that they bring with them to that point. And some people can't. And it doesn't matter whether it's network marketing or whether it's entrepreneurship, building a business. There's that gap. And you see that so much in entrepreneurship right now is this people with their, I've been like you, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 35. So that's a very long time. But they come in and 3 weeks or 4 weeks in or 3 or 4 months in, and they're like, I haven't made my first $5,000. I haven't even made $100 yet. But there's that balance of, you got to understand that it's a long journey. And
It's
the
a long game,
problem,
right?
yeah, and the problem with that, the fundamental problem or benefit of network marketing is that there are a lot of people that rocketed to the top very quickly in 2013, 14, 15 as the companies absorbed using socials. It's an
Yeah,
anomaly. It's not
100%.
normal.
Yeah.
Can't happen
Yeah.
now.
Yes.
So, but again, you see that same thing with entrepreneurship. When the pandemic happened, you have people who have, they have these fledgling online homeschooling, various different things like that, build a cottage and so on, that in the normal process of life, they don't have spikes of interest, but something happens and so it's that there's a little bit of luck, there's a little bit of timing, and there's being ready and having your surfboard ready when the big wave rolls in. You're still surfing every day, but you're
You want to be
ready.
pedaling. Yep, you got to be pedaling like crazy for when that wave
When it
comes, or
hits.
you will
Yep.
not yield, because you know what happens if you're not ready for the wave. You get
Yep.
smashed.
And that's what happened with life coaching as well. For years and years, nobody knew what life coaching was. Then all of a sudden, it just, and the people that were ready are at the very, very top. And now mindset is there, and in particular, money mindset. And I saw you and I do some similar stuff, but there's very niche within that. But I think that there is a big wave happening.
Yeah. Yes.
It's
Well,
not here
I
yet,
think
but
too,
it's coming.
over the last couple of years, so many people have reassessed. They've, or started their side hustle, but they haven't the skill. Well, it's the same old. It's not really that different. I think just it's accelerated it through the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good at this, so I'm going to start a business.
Yep.
But then there's no business acumen. And then wonder, a few months in, well, why is my business not working? It's well, and I have conversations. We were talking about this before we got on, Debbie. I have conversations with people all the time. Okay, so what is your goal? That is my first question generally, right? Well, what's your goal for your business? To be successful, or to break even, or to just make enough. I'm like, what is that even? Like, what?
Yep.
That's not a goal. Right, that is not
It's
actually a
not.
goal. It's clearly defined. It's not a goal. How much revenue do you want to making? How much profit do you want to be? Like, a specific. And I find a lot of women find it very difficult to articulate their numbers because for fear of retribution, for fear of so many things. And it's like, yes, but if you can't articulate it, your customers won't. No one else will. So. And then how do you know, if you don't know what the end game goal is, you can't work backwards to now, right?
That's right.
Like what are you even going to charge, or what do you like, how many of that do you need to sell, or whatever. So I think people have had these great ideas, and I do think, with where the economy's going, I think having a online side hustle, something, whatever, I think it's a fabulous idea,
Yep.
but not to be deluded that it just doesn't suddenly, oh woo, I've got my business and I'm successful. No, it takes grind, grit, hard work, roll up your sleeves, frustration. It's annoying. The
Yep.
first part of building a business is just downright annoying and frustrating.
I think that's where I'm like you, when I have to be very careful in the groups that I'm in, because again, when you've got business experience working with, $1 million, $2 million, $30 million businesses, growing them, and understanding the numbers and understanding the systems behind and the operations and the processes, from the small mom and pop to up to everything, both online and offline. I read some of the the comments. It's like, how can you possibly not know that? Or they're asking a question, and for sure that all the foundations that they need to get there, they don't. It's not there. And you see, when people are looking for coaches, that even within the online business, they don't understand what exactly someone is selling. Is it marketing? Is it selling? Is it the back end systems? Is it this? Is it that? And then it must be so frustrating. And that's the thing is, people like you are really needed to help them understand that, and at least get a starting point. Because if you don't know where you're going, you don't know what tools to start looking for. It's like
Absolutely.
going to Home Depot, here, our big home renovation place, and saying, I want to build a big shed.
Exactly, right. I have an idea to build a big shed. Can you
Yep.
can you help me out with that? Right?
Yep.
Like, well, you probably need a few more specifics. But I think too, Debbie, I think that people often wait to ask for help until they're in such a state of overwhelm,
Mm-hmm.
rather than going, okay, for me, right? And I think this is the advantage of being an athlete,
Yep.
is I know that when I set that goal, this is what I want to do. This is my goal. I know that I'm going to get frustrated, annoyed. I know that I lack knowledge gaps. And I'm like, okay, who can I get in my team that can support my knowledge gaps? And I don't want to take forever. It's painful. The going slow is incredibly painful. It drains all your energy and it costs 10 times more, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So rather than spend 10 times more and still not get to where I really want to go, I can spend more, shorten the time frames, which is actually spending less, and get in my wheelhouse, in my team, coaches, support, whatever, mentors, whatever it is that I need to get me on, to help me stay on track. It's not a failure. It's actually the fastest way.
Yep.
And because I've used that with it being an athlete, to me, it's like, well, why would you do it any other way, right? Like, it is the fastest way. Because for me to go and learn, like I compete in figure bodybuilding, so for me to learn every part of that and then to go on stage and to fail, like, it's excruciating.
Mm-hmm.
Because and I would give up because it would be too many failures. I couldn't handle that level of loss continuously, and then to be in such mystery, to go, why am I losing?
Yep.
Why am I losing? Right. And if you don't know why you're losing, get help to find out, because eventually, if you have too many losses, you will give up. So I'm like, all right, this is my goal. Then I have, when I'm competing, I have several coaches. Okay, this one who can specifically do that, because there's so many different parts. And then there's a lot of accountability and monitoring, because like business is a science, so is bodybuilding, so
Yep.
sport, right? It's very scientific, or the mechanics need to be monitored just as much as the mindset, because it's easy to go off track. So, you've got to learn how to pose, you've got to learn what to eat, you've got to learn, then there's the training, then there's the, okay, how are we looking, what's happening, etc., right?
Yep.
So, the it's okay. So I have, when I'm competing, I have my main coach, and then if we find a knowledge gap, particularly because you compete with different federations, they have all different specifics that they need.
Right.
Then I may plug another gap with another coach temporarily, just to get to speed for that specific thing, whilst I maintain my main coach, because when you also, they get to know you and you get to know them, it's long, like that process is important. So, I do think that part of it is that a lot of people just, they don't ask for help, particularly women, wait till you're completely overwhelmed or are in financial trouble,
Yep.
but you don't have, for fear of spending the money up front, or for fear of, there's so many fears, think they
Well,
can do it all themselves.
I think you're bang on. Number one, they don't know. I think if you ask the average person how many coaches a professional athlete has, they would probably say one, because they
Yes.
don't understand that there's a mindset coach, there's a squatting coach, there's a whatever, there's
Your nutrition coach. Yep,
yeah,
you've literally
there's
everything, right?
there's all those things. And so if you don't understand that about an athlete or about anything in general, and you go into business, you think that there's one person that can help you with every different facet. And unfortunately, the person that they turn to tends to be someone in their family who's a naysayer, says that, it's, why are you doing this? And who actually has no experience in business whatsoever. So they spend a lot of time trying to dig themselves out of a self-imposed hole. And the money, it's $5,000 for a coach is really not that much, nor is 10, nor is 25 for most people. 25,000 is touching it, for some people. But so you've got this money mindset that's driving the decision to pick the best person, and you don't ever see the best person because you're blocked off. So
Exactly. Yeah.
it's quite unfortunate. So let's talk about, we're on the business thing. 10x business coach. That's Grant Cardone's business licensing thing. How did you choose to go that route? Because I'm just going to give a little caveat. I do not like Grant Cardone at all.
And a
So
lot of
how
people
did you
don't,
choose?
right? Yeah. So a lot of people don't. But I think that a lot of people hear what he's saying to attract attention, but don't necessarily understand the message underneath that, right? Because for me, the tools and the things that he has available are incredible. And the concept around 10xing is to me, aligns for me, because it's not just about being successful in business. It's about having all areas of your life working in the same direction. It's about having your family working together towards common goals. It's, those things are extremely important to me. So that's how I came to get to that point. And also, I listened to 10x Mentor over and over again through, the tail end of the last business. And it really got me through that. Because it put some things into perspective for me, that it's like, oh, hard work's normal, and if you feel you've been vilified for something, that's very challenging to your self-esteem. So for me to hear, okay, oh, all right, so the way I normally operate is actually totally normal and fine, great, fantastic, thank you very much, needed to hear that. It got me through that. So then that, I guess, led me down the path. So what being a Grant Cardone licensee, a 10x business coach, assists me with is a whole plethora of tools that I can add in to what I do and support businesses within, that ability to get to where they want to go and understand correct perspective, because I do think people underestimate how long it will take. They just complete incorrect perspective, and then so they run out of steam because they don't have not estimated it correctly in the first place. So that's how I came to
Well, that kind
choose.
of that kind of segues back to what we were talking about in network marketing, because one of the things that there's a money coach you might have seen. I don't know whether you watch Netflix or not, but Ramit Sethi he's I will teach you to be rich, and he is so like it's a bias. He's so anti network marketing, and yet the power of network marketing, even if you only are one of those people that makes $300 a year, is that personal development piece that points you in the right direction of the books or the speakers that they bring at the big events that propel you to, probably leave the industry never having made very much. But that's so important. So when you say that was it helped you through, that you're evidence of it, whether you make money or not there, it's like they say, it's like a university that you don't ever have to go to school for personal development anyway.
100%. It definitely gives a huge amount of that. There's no doubt about that. And I learned a lot of skills. A lot of
Yeah.
skills.
Yeah, for me, it was the same. It was the same thing. I saw a couple of people on stage in Las Vegas who had stories that were very similar to mine, and I went, okay, well, if they can overcome that thing, which is not super common, then I can do this. And it wasn't for a lack of self-confidence. I'm not someone who's ever suffered from lack of self-confidence. And I'm one of, I probably like you, but maybe not. I'm one of those people that comes from a generation where women were strong and confident and smart and stood up there and were innovators and did stuff. They were just called bitches and pushy and all that sort of stuff, and
Uh,
like you say, when you hear those things, you after a while, and and rugs being yanked out from under your feet, you go, ah, despite all the mega successes, there's
yes,
still that peace
there is. Yeah.
underneath. Yeah.
The undermining after a while, they're just the subtleties, right? And then eventually
Hmm.
it penetrates and then without even realizing you can start believing it without
Hmm.
realizing you have. And that's for me, I was like, whoa, hold on. Where did my self-esteem go? Where did my belief go? Whoa, what
Exactly.
happened?
Yeah, that is the words you just said. That is exactly what happened to me. I struggled to get it back, and I had to really pull
Mm,
from various different areas. Um, and finally I got it back when I hosted the 2009 National Agility Championships, the biggest in the country, and so on. But it took me 10 years
yeah,
to build that
to build back up again.
yeah,
Exactly. And
yeah.
that's been since I left. The biggest journey has been trying to put me back together. The
Hmm.
business side, oh, yeah, okay, no worries.
Yep.
But putting me back together, wow, and then the ricochet effect, right? Because it's like, well, this has affected my daughter, my husband. I'm like, oh, hold on, this is not cool. So putting all of that, and then getting everyone back, heading in the right direction.
Hmm.
So, that's been an incredible amount of work, an incredible amount of work. I'm very, very glad that I left, and I'm very glad that I'm on my new
Yeah.
path. But it has definitely been a work, like you said, 10 years, right? I'm like, well, this needs to happen in months. So
Yeah.
like you've got to pour a lot in to be able to right the wrongs and do all of that stuff and rebuild one's self again. But it is possible, right? If anyone out
Yep.
there is listening and going, well, yeah, that's how I feel, you can rebuild. It doesn't have to stay that way, but you do have to change.
Yep. Yep, exactly. So you have a backstory too from when you were in high school and school where you were bullied, right?
Yeah.
So how does that come about? Is it you? Like I said, I read a little bit of it, but were they physically bullying you? Was it words? Was it
Both. Yeah,
yeah?
both. And I think again, because, I was that little bit different. I just wanted to go to school, do my thing, go home.
Hmm.
Didn't care for all the social blah blah blah. I
Yep,
just, I liked being an athlete. I liked being doing well at school. I just want to get on with life.
yep.
But then there's all the school games and the this one and that one and that. So that led down that path, and that was
Hmm.
not fun.
Yeah, it's horrible when that happens. I'm very fortunate that didn't happen, but I can see it. I have four grandkids, and they're they're all about the same age. But it's I had a boss, not a boss because I've been self-employed, but I came on a contract, and he said to me on the first day or the second day, "You don't suffer fools well." And I went, no, no, I don't. And I don't do small talk. And I don't want to be hanging around the water cooler talking about the weather. I just want to do whatever I'm contracted to do, give you a result, and then go do life the way I want to do life. And so,
100%.
yeah,
Agree,
and that's what
right?
everybody should be able to do. But there's so much pressure saying you should have to do this. So kudos to you. I know it was a long journey, but to get
Was.
there.
Yeah, and I think, you just brought up something. Often I do think we think success has to be a certain way.
Mhm.
And it's not often our definition. How often do people sit down and define their own definition of success? And I encourage people to do that, because make sure you're building success on the right wall and the way
Mhm.
you want it, because you can only have your own definition of success. It's what it means to you and what it is to you. But if you don't know what that is, you will build it based off someone else's reality. And there's a lot of BS out there, as we know, and there's a lot of falsity of, well, it's got to be this way and it's got to be all bright and shiny. Well, no, you can be a multi millionaire and still walk around in your sneakers and your track pants and whatever. You don't have to flaunt. If you want to flaunt it, go for your life,
Yep.
right? But you don't have to. That's not a marker of success. It's got
Yep.
nothing to
Exactly.
do with it. It's just a choice of how you live your lifestyle. For
Yep.
me, that doesn't, like, showing off all of that I'm not interested.
Yep.
So to also then be okay with you and how you want to demonstrate success in the world, despite the particularly, I think it's been affected a lot by social media, despite the social media portrayal of what success, all the lavishness. Nothing wrong with that. Like I said,
That's
if
your
that's
thing.
what
Yep.
you want, then go for it. But I think that then leaves those of us that don't have a high value on that struggling to go, well, then what is success? Like, I don't want that. So how do I fit me into success if it's only like that, which I don't like? So it's like, okay, no, that's just how this person wants to demonstrate success. This is actually what it is for me. This is right.
Mhm.
I'd rather build a moat the size of whatever around my family so that we're untouchable financially than have all of that, right? Like, so that not and there's no right or wrong. It's just you Debbie would have your definition, I have mine, and it's so
Mhm.
individual what one wants and how we want to express that in the world, because I think it is a self-expression. Having a business is a self-expression. Having success is a self-expression.
I think that that's what people struggle to understand because one of the challenges of creating success as you describe it, which is one of my coaches is James Wedmore. It's business by design, and it's that thing. But the challenge is visibility. Is if I want to, if I want to build that, my thing is with a moat and everything around me. How do I be visible? How do I, you know, how can people find me if I'm
Yeah, because that's boring, right? Like, it's quite a boring thing,
yeah,
so
it
it's
doesn't.
like, that's not very interesting on social media
No, it's
if I'm
not.
just doing the boring, stuff. So yeah, you're right. That is the challenge, but it's also still what we think we have to be on social media.
Yep. It's, and it is gradually changing. I think, the
Mm,
benefit of being the age that I am is that, I said to someone the other day, Instagram Reels, I love them at 8:30 at night, and they're no different than watching TV and America's Funniest Home Videos. It's the exact same thing. It's just a different platform than
exactly.
laughing. So let's a couple of questions. So I saw you used Wonder Woman as your thing, which is it's not an uncommon alter ego for women. Um, so how do you describe
Wonder
your
Woman.
Wonder Woman?
Yeah. So for me, there's a very big difference between Superwoman and Wonder Woman. So Superwoman, I think, is most people's thoughts around what, do everything, if I can conquer the world, etc. It's quite, but then for me, Wonder Woman is much wiser version. They know where their strengths are, where their limitations are. They still have huge goals, but they take the world with them. Very different, right? They
Right.
use the wisdom and um not conquer at the sacrifice of everyone else or
Mhm.
themselves for that matter.
And do you when you go into in a competition or anything like that, do you put yourself into your Wonder Woman persona? Is there like a ritual that you go through?
Probably to some degree, more I think when I perform well on stage, I know that that persona is confidence, because confidence is extremely attractive. You got to own the whole stage, right?
Mhm.
And it is very obvious watching when someone owns the stage and someone doesn't. So it is
Yep.
a persona, 100%. If I want to do well, I must own the stage regardless
Yeah.
of whatever's going on in my mind, regardless of anything. If I want to win, I have to own the whole entire stage, every facet of it. So yeah, absolutely. And I used to use this because I did Olympic weightlifting. I used to use it
Mhm.
for most of my sport, and it's like, okay, I'm going to procrastinate on my stinking thinking, on the imposter syndrome, on all of that. It's like, okay, I get you, mind, and I talk to my mind, right? Like,
Mhm.
because it's chitter chattering away, might as well talk back at it. So I didn't, like, thanks for trying to protect me, but it's right now I got something to do. I will deal with you later. I'll come pick you back up if I need you, but right now I don't. I need to do this. And then, by the time you've come off stage, you've completely forgotten about the chitter chatter. You're in a totally
Yep.
different state. So, I will often talk at my mind because then it shuts up.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because you either control it or it controls you, right? Feed the wolf. We know the old wolf analogy. The one that survives is the one you feed. So, that's kind of one of my rituals.
Okay, cool. I to anybody that asks, I always love to refer Todd Herman's book Alter Ego. I don't know whether you've read it or
No,
not,
I
but
haven't.
Todd Herman, it's when he puts his glasses on, that's it makes him into a smarter, wiser, coach and so on. And he works, he had worked with um, Kobe Bryant. Black Mamba was hit Kobe's alter ego, so that when he went into that alter ego, mine is a very bizarre combination of Iron Man and Tony Stark.
Oh, I love it.
Because I love the innovation and the spontaneity and the I can do anything concept, and I love the intelligence and the smartness and the humor of Tony Stark so much that I follow Robert Downey Jr. on LinkedIn because he is super intellectual into the science stuff. So that's when I need to really do something like before this, I just have to think about that Iron Man mask. I even
That's
checked
awesome.
they produced a limited edition kettle ball with the Iron Man mask, which was
That's
kind of
cool.
weird. I know, it's weird things. So, your book. Why did you write your book? What was the reason behind writing your book? I know there's a couple of people write books sometimes as a business card. The start of the funnel. That's where it is. Sometimes they write it, specifically because they know one person that needs to hear something, and some people just write it because they've got thoughts in their head that starts out as a journal and ends up as a book. So,
Yeah, probably two things. One was from the experience I went through in network marketing. I really felt people needed to express themselves as who they are. And I learned an awful lot through that journey. And so I wanted to put pen to paper and give people skills to stand in their own self, in their own definition of success and actually create that. So that's really why I wrote that book, and to move women from this whole superwoman load of crud that I think we often live by
yeah.
into something that's much more expressed. And I honestly, truly believe I think women will change the world. They need more of a voice,
Mm-hmm.
particularly moving forward. We've been in a very masculine way that hasn't worked so good. So, it's time to change. So that's kind of where that came from. It really helped me through that time too, to be able
Mm-hmm.
to write and then find my voice again. I was very cathartic, very healing, because, when you write a book, your words are on paper for the rest of your life. It's like, oh, I can't. So I actually rewrote it. I wrote the first time and then I rewrote it again. Like, we were written not far from publishing. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
no, I can't. No, doesn't feel right. Um, because it's this is my voice, right? This is my words on a page forever.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really interesting process to go through, and I found it very helpful to find myself again, and I hope that it helps people do the same thing.
Yeah, I've heard several other authors, friends of mine that have written books say a similar thing. It's very cathartic, it's very healing. It is painful having to go through, 6, 7 rewrites, sometimes
Rewrites. Oh,
rewrites, like you say,
yeah. Yes.
complete, throw everything away and start again. But in the end, it helps you find your voice. That's one of the things that I think that entrepreneurs need to focus a bit more. They're so worried about, what do I sound like? I came from a professional career as an accountant, left brain, very logical, no creativity. And so the concept of Instagram just was like way over there, was something that I never considered. But through the journey of becoming visible on Instagram and allowing myself to not be there for a couple of weeks if I didn't want to be there for a couple of weeks, but sitting in Canva before my VAs take it or anything like that, and getting the words out there into stuff and getting the colors and the designs and stuff, it actually did exactly like your book. It allowed me to find my voice and
Yes.
actually make two pivots in my niche to sort of keep narrowing it down and narrowing it down. But that was from just putting words and words and mouse to the thing.
Exactly.
So tell me about you. So now we're going to go back. Marissa, we're going to go back. So tell me about your childhood. So you're not originally from Australia. You're from New Zealand,
No,
right?
so I grew up in New Zealand. I mean, we had a great time. We spent most of the time outside. I grew up on the beach, and then we moved to a smaller town. Um, but I was involved in sport the whole time. That was kind of our outlet, I guess. And I grew up when I was younger. My grandparents lived kind of in the granny flat type thing, part of the house. So I always had my family around. My dad got quite sick throughout my childhood. He had 2 kidney transplants. That was
Oh,
always a little bit interesting, to say the least.
Yes.
But I always had family, like very family orientated, very family based, outdoors lifestyle. Um,
And
so
what did your parents do?
So my grandparents owned a holiday park. My parents ran that for them. And then, but my dad was a butcher by trade. So he went in and out of that, particularly after they sold the
Hmm.
other. My mum was an enrolled nurse. Um, didn't do a huge amount of that because she looked after us. She then helped with running the holiday park. Then they ran a few other ones throughout my life. And she worked in aged care for a while. So
Yeah.
it
And
was
you have,
they were not entrepreneurs. My grandparents were entrepreneurs.
yeah. And do you have sisters? You have
I
two
do. I
sisters,
have two
right?
sisters. Yeah, they're twins and they're 4 years older than me. So
And are they
yes.
driven? Are they driven like you?
Really interesting. One yes, one no. My oldest sister, absolutely. Very similar, very driven. My middle sister, no, not so much.
Hmm.
Very,
Int-
very different personalities. They're identical twins, but they're very different.
Yeah. Well, that I would expect that to them being twins and being
Totally.
older and so on. So that's kind of interesting. So you I'm going to quote you. You said if it's meant to be, it's up to me. That's a quote from what I read, and you kind of just referred to it a little bit as you were talking about. How do you find that shows up in your journey now? And two questions about that. When it does show up, does it show up as a hindrance or a benefit, or does it show up at both and as both at
Both.
different
I
times?
think everything's a double-edged sword, right? In terms of strengths and weaknesses, I don't know if I totally buy into that because I think it's so situational. Um, I mean, not to say you don't have strength and weakness, but still situational. So I think from a perspective of, if it's meant to be, it's up to me, is great for the fact that I'll take full responsibility, right? So, and I think you need to be able to take responsibility or you're not going to move anything.
Mhm.
So for that side of it's fantastic. The downfall of that is when I'm fiercely independent and I choose to be pig-headed and I don't ask for help.
Mhm.
Right. So there's the two sides when you use it in, right? Guilty as charged. When
Yep.
you use it in for good, for creating, its creative capacity, fabulous. But when you use it then it can also have its destructive capacity, which is when it's like hanging on too long, don't ask for help. No, I've got this. Like my husband will like, you right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. He's like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, you're not.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
like, yes,
Exactly.
I am. Right. So, yeah, they think it has both sides, and I think for me, the real reference of that is you've always got to be looking to take more responsibility, high
Mhm.
responsibility, high results.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So I'm picking questions out of here, some things
Go
that
for it.
I do know about you. Can you talk about your scar and what you think it represented?
Yeah. So when I was 1 year old, I got quite severely burnt. My grandmother was taking a roast out of the oven, the bottom dish fell. I was within the kitchen and it went basically all over me. So the all the oil and everything like that. She was very quick, threw me in the sink, poured water on it, as you do. I was only little, but missed the damage. Didn't to my shoulder. That was like it just didn't get enough water on. So I had third-degree burns on my shoulder and some of my back. Had to have the pressure garmenting. Went through like I don't know how many skin checks. Probably I think I went through skin checks until I was about 11 or 12. Just because you have to grow, right?
Hmm.
And when I even through most of my life, it was a very visible scar. It's still visible. It's just not anywhere near like it. Still looked like it was quite a fresh scar. It was only really till I started to go through the personal development journey, it started to change. And then my husband one day said to me, he said, I can hardly see it. I can hardly notice it. It looks this although a scar, the coloring is the same as the rest of your skin, whereas before it was distinctly still, the
Hmm.
purpley kind of looked very fresh. So, um, I think that going through that process of, because I think personal development is about finding who you are. It's not about fixing you. You are not broken. It's just peeling back the layers to realize who you are. And I think the more I get towards the core of who I am, and then actually, it's great to get to the core of who you are, but you got to do something with it. Then express that. I feel the more the scar has literally completely changed
Hmm. I
because I
think
haven't
if
done
we,
anything else.
yeah, I think if we rolled back time and took this conversation back 20 years or 25 years or 30 years, people would say you're batshit crazy.
100%.
But
100%.
today,
Right?
to,
The day and night, they
today,
absolutely, some people still will,
yeah,
right? Go, "You're bloody crazy." And it's
yeah.
like, well,
But
maybe I
today,
am, but I didn't do anything else
yeah,
except, you know, morph myself.
yeah. And now people are understanding how much affect what you're thinking
Oh,
and
yeah.
what you're feeling and what you're doing inside your body, and that authenticity, as we started off, that how much that affects things. So
It
it's not
manifests in all
crazy
sorts of
anymore.
ways, right? In all sorts of ways. And we, depending on, I think sometimes we'll manifest something that is, it's like a little tap on the door. You need to take notice, listen.
Hmm.
And then we don't, like, if we don't, then something louder will come along to try and get us to pay attention to the very things we need to change. And then if we still don't listen, unfortunately, sometimes the, freight truck comes through the door. So I always say, listen when you get the taps, please, because you know what's coming later if you
Yeah.
don't change something. But, that has, as a strong woman, as you would know, sometimes it it's a little bit more challenging to listen to the taps. Like, no, I will do it this way. It's like,
Yeah.
and
I'll
there's the freight
muscle,
train.
I'll muscle my way through it.
Muscle my way through. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a learning to balance between that. Yes, I'm going to conquer the world versus, I'm also going to holistically look after myself in the process. But you can do both.
Hmm. Yeah. I've been having that conversation with my son. He just turned 42. He works in construction. He's you know, he's on it's up to me. I got the best work ethic. I'm there before everybody will work, even though he went through hand surgery day after he's back at work and stuff. And then he's about 5 weeks after that, this nasty, nasty flu went through the house. The two boys brought it systematically, the kids brought it through, and then I got it, and I don't get hardly anything. So when I get sick, it's like that's the listen to it. But it took him out completely. He got
Mm,
the worst of it. And I was just saying to him this morning in the car, you need to listen to that because that's your body telling you to cut this crap out. You've
that's right.
got to
Tap,
be
tap.
paying
Right.
attention to it.
Yep.
So very, very true. So I know we're coming up to the hour, so I want to be respectful of your time. So how many are you still doing your occupational therapy and your coaching business? They're tied together, or
Well, I use all of the skills. That's very blended.
Mhm.
So I don't know that I would ever not use those skills because it's a way of thinking. It's a
Yeah.
way of looking at the world more holistically. You at the center, then you expand out to everything else that you do. That is pretty much right. And living on purpose, fulfilling the things that you want to do. That's the basis, right? And whether it's putting your socks on or building a house, whatever it is.
Yep.
So I utilize. It's still part of what I do.
Yeah. And so people know what you do. So through what do you do if in a sentence? Who do you help and how do you help them?
Yeah, so I'm a business coach. I work with, generally people who consider themselves high performers or want to be high performers, service-based businesses, because that's clearly my background. People who have a growth mindset, they're on purpose, and they want to do something different and help them maximize their revenue, therefore maximizing their profit. But build a business that supports them and the actual lifestyle they want to live.
Okay. And you have some systems and processes and stuff.
Absolutely. Use
walk them through.
specific strategies and processes, walk them through that process, so that they can actually walk away with that 100%.
And is there a particular level that they have to be at to start working with you, or?
Most people have been in business at least for a year, because they've kind of got through that first little bit of at least formulating the idea. So generally, people have been in business for a year. They're realizing kind of, oh, hold on, there are gaps, and they really don't want to waste another 1 to 5 years to get to where they want to go. Want to speed the process up.
Okay, that sounds cool. So what's the name of your book again? It's called
Living from the Inside Out: How to Become a Modern Day Wonder Woman, and it's available on Amazon.
Okay, perfect. So last question. Looking back, what was the biggest stumbling block that you had that you didn't actually realize that you had at the time?
Myself.
I think
Not-
who else?
Yeah, right. Like myself, in the fact that you don't know what you don't know till you start, and then you realize you don't know, right? Being pig-headed though, and not actually like holding on to things that weren't working too long.
Okay, cool. A great lesson for everybody. I loved hearing your story. It was
Thank
great.
you, Debbie. It's been an absolute hoot. I'm very grateful for you having me on. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.